alcohol, tobacco, textiles, handicrafts. Schulmeister smuggles everything that makes a profit. His winning manner, his charming nature, build up useful relationships. Gradually, he constructs a network of informants and officials who keep their eyes out for him or turn a blind eye, depending on what he needs at the moment. This is how one builds a career quickly. The river area is not only an ideal place for shady business dealings. The Rhine also marks the border between political systems. The many large and small principalities of the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation on the one hand, and centrally ruled France on the other. The French Revolution has only exacerbated the opposition between Germany and France.
The Holy Roman Empire of the German nation had lower taxes than the Kingdom of France for products such as tobacco, iron, pottery and ceramics. With the revolution, many institutions disappeared, but the taxes remained. That is, the difference in tax revenues still favored the imperial side, so to speak.
After the revolution, the Rhine makes for a hotly contested border, perhaps the most contested around Europe. This is where revolutionary France clashes with old-fashioned princely rule.
So in 1789, the Rhine is still a very indeterminate border. There are enclaves on both sides and exclaves, and in this way the border is quite fluid. It's only with the revolution that the Rhine becomes a natural French border, and the border thereby becomes sharper and the demarcation clearer. And that's when it's finally possible to see Strasbourg as a bulwark of the French Revolution, and as a French city at all.
As a free thinker, Schulmeister openly expresses his sympathies for this land of freedom. His home, under royal rule, is becoming too dangerous for him.
He has two problems. On the one hand, he's a smuggler, and a very successful one, which creates difficulties for the Neufreistadt village. Such behavior isn't acceptable. But above all else, he's working together with the French. In September 1797, he settles down in Strasbourg, for which he only has to cross the Rhine, so he doesn't have to go far.
An old imperial city in the Alsace, which was still German-speaking then, Schulmeister's new residence is a hotspot of the French Revolution. The revolutionary ideals in Strasbourg radiate, in particular to neighboring Baden, attracting men like Schulmeister. The former court actuary becomes a member of the Strasbourg Jacobin Club, but its heyday is already over.
He undoubtedly belongs to the Citoyen Actifs Club, because the Citoyen Actifs clubs are encouraged by the French army as it's about to occupy Baden.
During the wars of these years, military clashes on the Rhine keep happening. This is a stroke of luck for Schulmeister, because the French army values the smuggler's knowledge of the area.
Schulmeister has chosen to help the French army cross the Rhine. In May of 1796, French troops are on the left side of the Rhine, looking for suitable crossings to the other bank. There is a bridge between Strasbourg and Kehl, but they'd meet with resistance there. So one cannot cross the river unimpeded. This can only be done upstream.
Schulmeister's new trade is not without danger to himself. The local authorities now see him as a spy for the revolutionary arch-enemy to the west.
In a time when cartography was primarily for the military, and very incomplete as well, we also have to imagine that the normal path for moving troops could not be found easily. Civilian messengers were therefore forced to show the way, partly through money and partly with the threat of burning their house or village. There is, of course, quite a bit of leeway between those who volunteer, those who are coerced, those who are forced and yet richly rewarded, and those who can pretend they were compelled, although they may have done it voluntarily.
Whether it was for money or out of conviction for the liberal civic ideals of the revolution, Schulmeister helps the French cross the Rhine. And so, his career as a French 007 begins. Schulmeister recognizes the signs of the times. He plays a dubious role in the dissolution of the Jacobin Club in Strasbourg.
Schulmeister becomes president of the Jacobin Club, the Club du Citoyen Actif, when he comes to Strasbourg. His role isn't quite clear, but it is certain that Schulmeister is used to dissolve the club. The Club des Citoyens in Strasbourg disappears on March the 16th, 1797.
But his cooperation with the new rulers is of little use to him when the French customs agents start to notice his activities. He has to use his wife's fortune to pay his fines in order to avoid a longer imprisonment.
Whether it was his political activities or his smuggling that caused him the most trouble, in any case, by 1804, in Strasbourg, he's ruined. In May 1805, he appears before the customs court. In August 1805, he's deported from France.
The fact that a new war is coming must seem to him like a happy twist of fate.
And Jean-Marie René Savary is to prepare him, an officer with favorable memories of Schulmeister's excellent service in Strasbourg. Schulmeister's German origins and network to the east of the Rhine also speak in his favor. The smuggler is back in business.
For him, it doesn't matter if it's espionage or smuggling. It's still the same métier. And as soon as he's in Germany, he has his connections.
In 1805, spies didn't have the same technical resources available to them as their fictional compatriots have nowadays.
There wasn't any James Bond yet. It's clear that Schulmeister had a network. His network was a network of smugglers, mainly insurers of smuggling. He meets people in the inns. That's where he makes connections with people he can use. People who can travel or have special positions and who can be used for information.
Inns become his conspirational meeting places. This is where he recruits his informal staff, where he bribes and negotiates, where he passes on confidential information to his assistants. With his ways and means, he intervenes in major world events. After Ulm's capitulation, he continues to use his Austrian passes and letters of recommendation. After all, the Austrians still consider him to be their agent. This enables him to move unimpeded between Austrian contingents. Yes, Schulmeister even advises their general staff on tactical questions. His many successes are making him overconfident. He recruits a businessman in the pub. This time, however, Schulmeister, usually an excellent judge of character, is dangerously mistaken. His new informal employee goes straight to the Austrians. Schulmeister is arrested. He cannot hope for mercy now.
If one plays a double game like Schulmeister and actually acts outside these military hierarchies as well, one makes quite a dubious figure. It was clear that there was a distinction between a soldier engaged in military reconnaissance and a spy. A spy was to be shot immediately, and that was a constant threat for Schulmeister.
He is spared a court-ordered execution for the moment. The French are getting closer and closer. But the military prosecutor wants to interrogate him. Is Schulmeister a double spy? For whom is he really working? Who's part of his network? Schulmeister is transported by a troop of soldiers to Bohemia. When the French troops are dangerously close, the men beat up their prominent prisoner, rob him and leave him lying on the ground. Schulmeister makes his way to Vienna as a vagrant. These days, it's under the administration of the French military, which had proceeded unimpeded to the capital after its victory at Ulm. Savary receives his old friend with open arms, outfits him again, and makes him a prefect of police. A surprising turn in this extraordinary career.
It's certain that a suitable mediator has been found at just the right moment. Savary employs him, but not for espionage. He is to be in charge of public safety. Of course, his work for public safety includes some counter-espionage work.
In the suburb of Mainau, he buys a castle, as appropriate for his standing and to show his fellow citizens that he has made something of himself. But he keeps mum about the origin of his means.
Schulmeister tries to conceal the origin of his wealth. He doesn't say it comes from espionage, but from his work for the police. It's an affront to honest work in the city, according to public opinion.
He is denied public recognition, through the Cross of the Honorary Legion, for example, or through a noble title. Napoleon is preparing for the next campaign, and Savary takes his old friend and comrade in arms out of his bourgeois retirement. He is needed for the fight against Prussia, for his abilities, local knowledge, and, last but not least, his old connections in Germany.
In the army, Schulmeister appears to have no problems, since he's seen in the campaign of 1807. He fights and rides with the light cavalry, tasked with figuring out the appropriate path for the army.
Even among the troops, Schulmeister wears his civilian clothes. He never has to force himself into a uniform. His real mission is the administration of the conquered territories. In uneasy times, order is required. No insurrection can be allowed to break out behind the troops. An extraordinary hussar operation is ascribed to Schulmeister during the conquest of Wismar. While Prussian troops are stationed in front of the city, Schulmeister gallops through the gates with a few horsemen and closes them immediately. He successfully leads the Prussians to believe that a large contingent of French troops is on the march. The frightened Prussians surrender to a small squad. The war against Prussia ends in 1807 with a complete defeat for Schulmeister's German countrymen. Prussia must submit to Napoleon. The French march to East Prussia. Savary will be governor there. He has already had good experiences with Schulmeister and the police. His best agent will now be chief of police in Königsberg. Schulmeister is one of the many effective cogs in Napoleon's system of domination.